Hey, this is Andrew Brown. In this video, I want to focus on intrinsic functions. So intrinsic functions are functions that uh, can assign value properties that are not available at runtime. And so there's a few that we will end up utilizing, some that I rarely ever use. So let's go take a look here and make a new folder. And this one will be called intrinsic, if I can spell it, Intrinsic. I'm hoping I spelled that correctly. I'm going to go grab our depends on example and bring this into our intrinsic code here. And I'm just going to change this to intrinsic. And we actually have been using intrinsic functions because it's very hard to use CloudFormation without working with intrinsic functions. So what we'll do is just go ahead and delete this here. And there's a few intrinsic functions that we can utilize. I'm just going to write out what I want to accomplish here. So we have ref, we have get at, we have sub, we have split. There's other ones like select or join. Join is one I use quite a bit. And then we have import value, which we'll worry about later on. So yeah, those are pretty good ones. There's other ones I don't usually use often, which like base64, which can return the base64 representation of a string. But anyway, let's focus on these because I feel like these are the most common. And so we have an EC2 instance here. And the idea is that probably the easiest way is to just use it on outputs. So let's go ahead and use outputs here. I'm just going to look up outputs reference CloudFormation. So I don't always remember the syntax for this. I always have to like copy and paste it. And so this is the general format for outputs. And in here, we can get value. So let's just say value 1 here, and the value here is going to be ref. I'll just make this a single EC2 instance. And then we'll paste that in here as such, so we can reference the EC2 instance. Let's go take a look at the documentation for EC2 instances so that we can try to use more intrinsic functions. And if I go down to return values, this is what will happen if we return a ref. So this will bring back the instance ID. So if I go over to here, we can name this as instance ID. Now we're using the shorthand here, but like if you didn't use the shorthand, you type in function and then you type in ref. So you could do it this way, you could do it that way, you could also do it this way. But I like to use the shorthand syntax because it is a lot nicer. But you could, in theory, use this one here. And sometimes you have to because you can't mix with this little shorthand thing with the exclamation mark. You can't mix it with ones that are in line with each other. So sometimes you'll see people working through those issues. But anyway, so this will be instance ID. And then I'll go down here and call this instance ID. We don't have to set an export on that one, but I'm just going to because it's already there. And now let's see if we can grab something with a get ATT. So maybe we want to grab its private IP address or public IP address, or maybe the VPC. Yeah, we'll do the VPC here. And so let's say VPC ID. And then the idea is that if we want to access something here, this is where we use the get ATT. I don't know why I wrote just GTT. That makes no sense down there. And again, if you want to, you could do this, get ATT. This will be our VPC ID. Then we have sub. So sub allows us to substitute a value. Let's go look that up there. So sub, CloudFormation. Okay, so the way it works is we have a string, variable name, variable 2. I mean, that doesn't look really clear as an example. I don't really like that. Let's go down below here, take a look here. So, I mean, that would be a good one. So yeah, let's just actually copy this one. I like that. We'll take that. And so the idea here is that we have an ARN, and so we have AWS region, AWS account, VPC, and then we have this here. And so maybe I would like to go grab the VPC ID here, and so we could try this. I'm not sure if it'll work in here, but we'll try it anyway. We'll say my EC2 instance, VPC ID. Okay, and so VPC ARN. And I'll grab this here and place this here. But sometimes I have like troubles when we have a statement inside of that. So we might have to fiddle with that to make it work. So now we have our sub. Then we might want to utilize split. So we have that over here. Let's see if we can find an example. So this is an example where it's splitting on the hyphen. Where this might be a good example is you might want to split on the comma. So you might get back a value of, or you might be inputting a value of subnets. So that might be something that you're passing in. And then down below, you might need to split them as you pass them into something else, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this, just say splits. And I'm going to go here. And I guess we can change this so that we bring in subnets. So we'll just say subnets. I believe there is a special parameter for subnets, so we'll just say parameter subnets, CFN. And yeah, there should be something for subnets. Yeah, it's this like a list of subnets. So we'll go here and paste this in. And so here it's kind of expecting us to supply some subnets. I'm going to try to default this. And I think that the way it works is you just give it a comma and then it knows to turn it into a list. But what I'll do here is I'll go, this is actually for joining, not splitting now that I'm thinking about it. But what we'll do, we'll have to do both of them anyway, so it's not a big deal. But we'll go over to VPC here. And we'll go to VPC. And I'll just select my VPC here, and I want to grab this subnet here. And I'll paste it in as such. And then I'll grab this other one here. And I'll paste it in as such. It doesn't matter if they actually work because I'm not going to reference them anywhere in the code. Like if I make a mistake here, I don't think it will matter. And here it might not like the type valid. Value is not accepted as the value. Why not? Maybe I can go see an example of that. Parameters. So, oh, I have a comma delimited list parameter. You know that. You can use this parameter to specify multiple value strings as a single parameter. But what does it treat it as? That way you can use a single parameter instead of many different parameters to supply multiple values. I mean, that is fine, but I was hoping for this one to work. I still think it's working, so I'm just going to leave it alone. I just don't think it's being smart here. Missing properties. Oh, because it's under resources. This is not a parameter. Okay. So I'll go up here for a second. Hold on. Parameters. That's why I was getting confused. And then I'll just grab this and place this up here. And actually, this isn't going to be really good for the splits. It's going to be better for the joins. Sorry. So we'll go here and join subnets. Joins subnets. And the value here is going to be join. And I imagine it works very similarly here. So this would be join on the comma, and then we would supply our subnets because it already is a list or an array, whatever you want to call it. Subnets. Up there. I don't think I need the comma on this one here, like that. Like this. And so you can supply it this way. I'd probably prefer to do it inline. Like you could just do this instead. And this is, I think, a lot nicer to do. And then I'll just bring this down here and then fix indentation. So this should, in theory, join that. Our splits is fine. Again, I wanted to use the subnets as an example of splitting something, but if this works, that's totally fine. Now, the other question is, like, can we actually split an output? Because I'm not sure if it'll actually work on an output. It might work if we're passing a value somewhere else. So if this doesn't work, we can just take this off here. But I'm expecting this one might fail here. But yeah, there are other functions. So yeah, to JSON string, there's a few that I haven't seen before, like to JSON string length. I don't remember that being there before. For each, that seems like that's a newer one. So it's nice to see that we have some newer ones here. But let's go ahead and, like this one, I'm really surprised the for each, because for the longest time you could not do anything like this. And so you'd have to use CDK or use Terraform for something of the equivalent. So maybe that is interesting here. You must use the AWS language extension transform. That's why I haven't heard of it, because you probably have to include this, yeah, at the top, that transform. So that's kind of interesting. But anyway, let's go ahead and see if this actually works. So ls intrinsic int, there we go. And we'll go ahead and deploy this. The value field of every outputs member must evaluate to a string. And so basically this one here is just not going to work there. So we'll just take that out, which is totally fine. And we'll say deploy. Then it says the output section contains a duplicate export. We'll just take out the exports. We don't need them. And we'll try this again. We'll go over to here. Well, did that fail? No, that worked. Okay, great. We'll refresh this, and we will attempt this change set. And so now we will wait for this create, and hopefully this will work without issue. Okay. All right, looks like that works. We'll go ahead and change the templates, outputs. And so for our joins, you can see it joined our subnets that we passed in, because it would have went in as a list, and then we're joining them together. We were able to reference that there, and then this almost worked, but yeah, you can see like I messed up. See, it says get ATT my EC2 instance of VPC ID. So that clearly is not working correctly, and I suspected that it might not work correctly. So we'll have to change the way this works. Okay, so this is where sub gets a little bit weirder with its weirder syntax. And so we'll go back over to our function, because we have to get it to work. Otherwise, you know, what's the point? But we'll go ahead and look up sub again, CFN. And the idea here is, I think that what we can do, yeah, I think what it is that we put a value here like our VPC ID, right? And then underneath, so this is our string, right? Like this. And then underneath we can be like VPC ID. And that's where we'll set, just gotta check here. Yeah, key and value. Okay, great. So then the idea is, I think we can do is take this here like this. So it's starting to come back to me here. And we can paste it in as such. And so I think that will work. Now, would we have to fix these two? I'm not sure. I think those are fine. I don't think I'd have to remap those, but I guess we can find out. So let's go ahead and see if we can deploy that, or if it does not like that syntax. Unresolved dependencies VPC ID in the outputs block of a template. Okay. And I think the problem is that I have this sub here, and this sub is expecting, let's see here. Yeah, we have an array and then another one here. Okay. Can we get an example of that or no? Yeah, they never really show good examples for this, I find. But I know it's like interesting, like they have these other syntaxes, but they don't show it to you, which is a bit frustrating. So let me think about this for a moment. VPC ID is up here. So I'm going to try and do this. Let's say region, and then maybe ref AWS region, like this. And then we'll have AWS account ID. And this will be ref AWS account ID. Because I know this works. It's just getting it to work is a bit finicky. And so I think that looks correct to me. So try this again. So one or more sub-intrinsic functions does not specify expected arguments. Specify a string as the first argument, and an optional second argument to specify a mapping of values to replace it in the string. Okay, so maybe if we take these parts out, maybe we'll just do that. I'm going to try this. Region, account ID. It's a little bit easier to read. VPC ID. So we'll try this. We'll say account ID, region, VPC ID. And we'll see if it takes that instead. Functions do not specify expecting argument, specify a string as the first argument and an optional second argument to specify the mapping. And so I'm thinking the thing is that we just have to take those two out there and that might fix that issue there. Because it says one and second, right? And the second one is a key value mapping. And so that looks like that's a bit better. We'll go ahead and refresh this and we'll execute this and we'll see what we get this time. All right, let's see if we were able to correct the output here. No, still doesn't work. Okay. What does it want? Because like if you read it, it's very clear what it says. And this is where it's kind of frustrating, where they could have done a better job with the docs and showed an actual example of what they want. But it says string, var name, var value. If you're substituting only template parameters, resource logical IDs, don't specify a variable map. So sub variable map example, can we get one for this? This is where I actually have to go ask ChatGPT. This is so silly. For CloudFormation. And let's see if it can actually give us an example. But, you know, we read it, so it seems very clear. Okay, so it does use the dollar signs in it, and it looks like we can mix it. Then why didn't it work? So I'm going to go here and put the dollar signs back around as such. And we'll try this again and deploy. Says it's creating it now. Okay, and we'll give this a refresh here. And so now we're getting what we want. So there we go. So I feel like that satisfies our intrinsic functions section here. We could also extend it and try to use for each. I can't imagine that ever be on exam or anything like that. That's a more complex use case. So we'll call that done there. And we'll go ahead. We'll say intrinsic functions example. Excellent. And I'll see you in the next one, okay? Ciao.